of the usurpation of corporate fiction in the place of the People's Republic. So Washington, remember, he came in as a wartime president. He was a General George Washington. He assumed command of all of the militaries of what they call the Union forces. And they became the United States of America at that time. Now, at that time, we had already been through 13 years of Continental Congress reign with at least 8 different indigenous leaders being elected president. It was because of this that they had to switch us over to corporate. Then again, after Lincoln assassination, Congress fled, which left the vessel afloat at sea because Turtle Island floats on the ocean. So it's considered as a movable vessel in maritime law. But the land rights, once restored, become the common law. This is why Donald the Duck, Donald John Quavius, that's why he said that if you've been together, living, cohabiting for 5 years or longer, you're married, period. That was under the common law. He's taking us from the admiralty back to the law of the land. Under the common law, you didn't need a wedding to be married because you didn't have to be certified through the state as a qualified applicant. Remember, the old marriage certificates required a blood test for blood compatibility and breeding the offspring. Eugenics, right? And then they went from that to just recording the offspring because they came up with drugs where the Rh negative and Rh positive won't cause a negative side effect and the woman can carry the baby to term. Right? Using medical intervention. And from there, now they cloning the mind. The union of the people is the union of corporations in the form of marriage. So you go back to the common law. The common law goes back to what they say in Genesis. You should leave thy mother and father, cleave to thy wife, and y'all should become one flesh. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's telling you about the matrilineal system. The land rights is inherited through the mother line. Mm-hmm. Rulership rights is inherited through the father line. When the father line has to be activated by the mother line in order for him to rule in his time. Once he's been activated, then he steps into the position of prominence, the position of power, to reclaim what was stolen. So first they had to go back to the Republic form of law, because the Republic take you to the Constitution. From the Constitution, whether they go the Longhouse Treaty or whether they go Continental Congress, Articles of Confederation, becomes hot at that point. I mean, they become overly active because you reverse engineering the whole colonization process. It's the only way out to get it over with. So as you reverse engineer it, you see everything you've seen coming into the situation going out. You just got to realize it's going to be upside down and backwards. That means names going to be changed, people going to be switched from place to place from the beginning to the end. We came in under George Washington following the Continental Congress. We leave out under George Herbert Walker Bush, who declared himself King George I, with a Senate Select Committee recognizing him as the king of the land. By doing that, he activated wartime protocols for the military because it's considered an attempt to take over the government during the time of war. right? So it's taking away the power from the people. So following that, you have your Continental Congress years being played out as your Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Donald Trump going in reverse engineer. Because remember, King George is still the king until they take his head. So that meant whoever was on sitting in the seat, if they didn't take his head, they was his puppet. So now you go back to the funeral and you see the envelope and everything starts to make sense.
That's right, Rod.
So we have to go back to the Republic first in order to give them what's owned by treaty by us, back to us. None of the treaties were supposed to last longer than the constitutional contract of 200 years.
That's what the conjure was. All right. That's what.
Could you go in? That's the first question. Could you go in on the right to govern ourselves, and that's part of our sovereignty? And that's they saying that we don't know how to govern ourselves. That we savages. That's what the Pope said. The Pope said if they ain't Christians, they savages. So we got to govern. Go ahead. Could you go in?
Yeah, so what you talking about? That was all instituted long before they invaded. In the 1300s, they started issuing those papal bulls that was licensing the tyrants of the church to start conquering lands. They started in Europe.
Right. That's right.
Right. The church was one of the most instrumental tools in the expulsion of the Moors from Europe, or as they say, Spain. Like, you got to remember, when Columbus came and went back over there and reported his findings to Ferdinand and Isabel, they had been beheaded. Right? That was part of the Great Inquisition that lasted 700 years until 1495, I think it was, 94, a couple of years after the reporting of discovery of the New World. When they discovered it over here is when they established the New World Order, which was a corporate order, an order of fiction. They always referred to this as the New World because the order of the ages has to come from this land. We have to be intellectually inclined because we are the head of the earth. Of all of the collective people, the body part we play the role of is the brain. So we have to figure out what's going on so that we can wake the other tribes up around the world. And they all been watching us for years, waiting on us to say, when these suckers gonna wake up? Now we woke. We aware. We see clearly the far before us. We don't want to take part in any of the far. But they compel you with adhesion contracts. Right? So you forced to be, anytime they force you in the contract, that's not autonomous government. That's not self-government. We never wanted to be a part of the United States. That's why they called us outlaw tribes, enemy combatant tribes, foreign nation dependent tribes, right? But then they mixed us up in their paperwork and changed our identity over and over and over again. Right? That's to shuffle us up with people that ain't from here that look like us, but they ain't us. Right? George Washington challenge. In 200 years, will they know what side of the ocean they come from? We come from this side, they came from that side. We just was fighting the war for the throne. The great sacerdotal seat of the Great Mother, which is over here. Right? They use their spells and sorcery and conjure to try to usurp, but it only can last until the close of the age. Now that the age closed, the great era of disclosure is here, and we telling everybody exactly what's going on, and they kind of see it, but they kind of don't.
It's happening.
right? So the awakening, as they call it, is when enough of us is aware that it causes a sudden paradigm shift.
That's right.
This is all that's talked about on the internet right now. Who we are. I don't care if you're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. It's the hottest topic on the internet.
That's right.
When I came out, the only person that was talking about this on the internet consistently was Dane Calloway. And back then, I used to see videos of Chief Warhorse.
Yeah.
Now, it's everywhere you look. We telling them. The gig is up. Trick no good. The grand illusion has been seen through. We see the goofy behind the curtain now. Right? We not falling for it. We know we was invaded. We know we was usurped by dirty Moors.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Not to be confused with the righteous Moors. It's a very unique distinction between the two. All of the Moors know it's the difference between the dirty Moors and the righteous Moors. But sometimes even the righteous Moors, when you hear you talking about the dirty Moors, get offended because you're talking about the Moors.
Right.
You might not have no problem with them because you know they about what's telling the truth about what's right. But the dirty Moors use them as minions and sick among you. So they come heckle you, try to lure you into fruitless debates when they don't even know their own doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
So the Grand Sheik say when he seen me, he the finisher.
That's right.
He came to finish it, close it out, wrap it up. Zigzag flip through the end of the gate. Sew that shit up. Whoop their ass from pillar to post. Until it's all sold up. Now they can't got nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The gig is up, the fraud is exposed. Stay out from people way and let them clean up the land. That's all they doing. That go back to what I was saying earlier. ICE is offering great incentives for police to leave the police force and join ICE. ICE is part of Homeland Security.
That's right.
Right, which falls under the Justice Department and ultimately the U.S. Marshals. Then they can be also utilized by the National Guard or in conjunction. Stay out them people way. Them police got it coming. Them judges, I can't wait because I hope they put them on the guillotine concerto and let me pull the rope.
Hey, you mentioned another question I got for you before we go to the next couple slides. Now, in a republic, they said, like in the democracy, they said that the majority rule, and then nobody else got no rights. Whatever they say, go. And then in pretty much the mob rule in democracy. And they've been promoting the democracy to us the whole time, like making us Nubians think that that's the way we're supposed to go. They down for us, and they've been
okay. The whole time. But now, when you go studying socialism and communism, because it's part of world history studies,
yeah,
you realize that when you read the writings of socialists and communists around the world, when it's translated into English, they don't call it socialism or communism. They call it democracy.
The computer.
It's a whole different form of government. The democracy means mob rule, but it's actually mob control, ruling the mob with an iron fist. When you go back to the Bolshevik Revolution, you realize that the iron fist was one of their symbols. It also looked like the Black Fist of Unity.
Yeah.
It also looked like the JDL fist. So the fists understand the power of the unity, but they want the unity of the 1% to steal the wealth from the rest. They don't want the rest to be unified and take the wealth and redistribute it amongst all of us. Because we are heirs to the earth. They got us thinking that we some kind of visitors here. We've been here the whole time. People be like, why you got to pay to live on earth? You don't pay to live on earth.
Right.
You pay to live with the amenities of modernized living. Otherwise, you just move into the woods and start living.
Uh-huh.
But that's not conducive to most people's understanding of life, because we used to civilization. But the tribes that live out in the Amazon, they don't pay no bills.
Right. That's right.
The ones that live in the Serengeti Plains, they don't pay no bills. The one that live in the Australia outback, they don't pay no bills. Anywhere you don't pay no bills, you have limited supply to what we call modern standards.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to be incorporated in the census, in the count of the people. That's what the census is for, to count the people.
Mm-hmm.
But when they count you, they have to classify you as in poverty because you're not part of their system. Your wealth is derived from an alternative source, the fat of the land.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't quantify it in reserve notes, then they don't recognize it as wealth.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, if it doesn't produce harmony of life, we didn't recognize it as wealth. And sometimes more people, the only thing that kill more people than money is love.
Mm-hmm. It ain't funny, but it's true though.
Yeah. Wars have been started that killed millions in the name of love. You know, so that's the historical record. Anybody can look it up. The only thing that died at the third place is religion.
Facts. Hey, Rod. Oh, go ahead. I thought you had to start. Go ahead.
Yep. So when you realize what everybody dying for, then what is we living for?
Right. That's deep. Make sure I put that as a highlight. Hey, my next question before we go to the next slides is under the Republic, they say that we got God-given rights, unalienable rights. Could you go in on that? God-given rights, unalienable rights under the Republic? Because in a democracy, they pretty much, we got the rights, but they don't gotta really mind them in a democracy because it's a mob rule. But in Republic, those rights ain't nothing, no way around it. And it's pretty much this is the Republic. The democracy is just a usurp or try to overlay onto the Republic to try to get us to agree to it. So could you go in on unalienable rights, God-given rights in the Republic?
Unalienable right. First of all, any right you have, if you don't exercise it, it don't matter.
Uh-huh.
Your rights are only your rights when you are exercising them. Like when I tell you that they enumerated your rights in the Indigenous Rights Act, and it told me I can use the oral tradition to talk to my people.
That's right.
As long as I follow what's called a public notice format. Timestamp, archivable, dated format. All social media reach more than 1,000 people fall under that category. Mm-hmm. So everything I do on social media is those agent notes to principle. Right. Exercising of the sovereignty.
That's right.
The Republic is ruled by laws. The people generally elected officials to make laws. Normally it was to fix governmental issues. It wasn't to govern people. It was to give resources to places. The people at the grassroots level was responsible for the local issues. And that was to use federal government to extract resources under the Republic, and the resources sometimes require a law to be passed in order for a pipeline to be built, a water channel to be dug, a dam to be built. Remember, in early America, Congress didn't meet all year long. They only met like 2 weeks out the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was never supposed to be a profession. It was supposed to, accumulated resources was supposed to provide the needs from a bigger bank to the places that was developing, but instead they started siphoning the money to overseas interests. As any almanac will show you where they were sending all of the money to, they wasn't spending it here. Everything they did was bare minimum for maintenance. That's why our infrastructure was crumbling.
Yeah.
Because they was only doing minimal maintenance on the land in order to pay for the rest of the world to be developed.
Yeah.
When you see how Dubai look, most of that money came from here.
That's right.
When you see how Bangkok look, most of that money came from over here.
Yeah.
Thailand,
Yeah.
and all of those countries, high-end countries, oil-producing countries, was getting that money from over here. The irony is that we produce just as much oil in the Texas Southwest region as they do in the Middle East.
Oklahoma, all capital of the world. All capital of the world.
They got just as much oil in Mexico as they do in Nigeria. Right? Mexico is rich in all kind of resources, but the people not reaping the rewards of the wealth of the land. That's what's supposed to finance all of our stuff, because they are accumulating and calculating the wealth they stole from us, because they got to give it all back in the end if we figure out who we are.
Say trustees. That's right.
Yeah. So now, your republic, your rule by law, becomes micromanaging rules. To rule by law, they're making traffic law, which is public policy. It's not law. Right? They're making family court law. That's public policy. That's not law. The elder women from both families supposed to get there and go through the divorce settlement. Got nothing to do with the courts.
Right.
But people then rely so much on the courts that now we can't use the tribal method of the elders in the family determining family tie, who's more fit as a parent, the mother or the father. And if you can't afford the child, then you can't have the child. Give it to the one that can afford it. But you still get to see your child. It's just that the primary custody goes to the one that can financially sustain the lifestyle of the child at a reasonable level without the aid of the state, because that's about to be gone.
All right. Let's roll that next one, man. Now, this next part finna get interesting, y'all.
Roll the corn.
Get scared now.
That picture was on your video that was the prelude to this video. Did you notice that? You on mute.
Hey, I ain't know you had text me, bro.
But that go right into what we're talking about. Because a lot of people don't know the Dirty Moors is the ones who started the KKK. And they was the original ones under the KKK uniform. That's why we used to call them the Black Hand. Because we couldn't see their face, but we could see their hands. See, in that picture on your video, it showed them walking down the street. The one carrying the American flag is, you can't mistake him for nothing but a brother.
And the other two dudes were to the right of him. They look like brothers too.
Well, see, y'all gotta be aware of this. Most of the socialist doctrine come from C.L.R. James. one of the most prolific writers. He was out of the islands down there in Central America. I think he was from Barbados. I think he might not be. It might be another country down there, but I think he was from Barbados. But that's where all of the ideologies were refined under Trotsky and Lenin through C.L.R. James. When Lenin got exiled, he went into Mexico and he used to meet with C.L.R. James in Mexico. They wrote a book together called Black Nationalism and Self-Determination. And that writing is part of the blueprint to what we call the Black Power movement of the 1960s. And that's why they kept calling Martin Luther King the communist. You muted, Elder.
Hey, this question, Rod, from that. So, with the Klan, the Grand Wizard, all these guys, one of these articles I read said the Klan was putting guns to brothers' head and saying, you better convert to Democrat or else get your brain. They said there was 22 congressmen of House of Representatives that were brothers or Moors or, original people of the land. And
you know why that don't make sense to me, Elder?
Why?
The black codes weren't allowed to vote yet.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's that black code. The black code didn't get reenacted until after the Civil War.
Mm-hmm. That was around the development time of the Democratic. The Democrats was a breakoff from the Republican Party. It was originally the Democratic Republican Party.
Yeah, the Whig Party.
And they had several other parties. The Commonwealth Party, which was the remnant of the Continental Congress, who was fighting to restore the Continental Congress back as the supreme law under Articles of Confederation. They was in there trying to take over corporations so they can restore the republic. That was called the Commonwealth Party. Mm-hmm. You had the ones who was representing the interests of Britain, which was the Whig Party.
That's right.
Right. And then you had the ones that the colonists set up, which was called the Colonial Party. Right. And then they became, the Colonial Party gave birth to something called the Daughters of the Republic, who became instrumental as supporters of the Republic under the Constitution to try to get away from the Articles of Confederation. It was basically a political wrestling match between the people from the land and the ones who were the squatters on the land.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Look, so the police connect with this too, going with because the KKK with the slave catchers and going back to Amsterdam where they started their first little police patrol. Matter of fact, let me roll these next clips because it's gonna bring on my next question. The next clips. So we're gonna go ahead and roll these next clips. Us back into chattel property with Congress instead of with the church or the Pope. Go ahead.
Okay, slavery was private.
Okay.
Before abolition.
Okay.
The 14th Amendment made you become a public servant slave as opposed to a privately held servant slave.
Okay, yeah.
Right. The what he talking about with the slave system. It's a system.
Mm-hmm.
In the system, they wanted to have everybody under the net of bondage. So they wrote the 14th Amendment so they can not only enslave the so-called Negro, but now they can also use the system of taxation to enslave the European as well, the pale-face.
That's right.
Right? So it was a banking philosophy applied through political means. Republicans. The Republican Party is the champion of big corporations. You got to remember that part too.
Okay, go ahead.
Which don't mean us no more good than the slave master.
That's what I was getting at. Go ahead.
When you go back to the catalyst for the complaints that created the Civil War, the Republican North was saying that because the South had free labor, they was able to generate more capital than the North. Right? This was after they ceded from the Union. So in order to save the Union, if you go back and read Lerone Bennett's Forced into Glory, the Abraham Lincoln story, Abraham Lincoln said, if I could save the Union and keep slaves, I would do that. But I see that I can't save the Union unless I free the slaves. So he made a public announcement. Now you got to remember, a proclamation is a public announcement.
Yeah, that's right.
Emancipation means to transfer property. Most people don't know that's what emancipation means. It was the transferring of the property that was private property in the South. Under the rule of the North, it would be public property of the corporate entity masquerade as the government.
Dang.
Right? A national is a subject. A national is the legal fiction. This is why all ships on the high seas are referred as a national, coming with a nationality represented by the flag they fly. So they become citizens of the nation that hold their nationality. The nationality movement of the Dirty Moors was to get you into a slave catcher agreement with the corporation by making you become an asset, national in law, of the corporation in which you proclaim your nationality to. If you proclaim your nationality to a foreign nation, then you obligated to register under the Trading with the Enemies Act, the part that's called foreign dignitaries. Right? So once you do that, you're supposed to be then seeking political asylum with diplomatic immunity as a foreigner in a foreign land that represents another nation. The problem with that is your ass can be deported to the nation you pledged your nationality to.
That's the thing. That's the thing. And I believe, like I say, that I don't think nationality a bad thing. I just think that it's misdirection on the Dirty Moors to sell us out over to Morocco over there when we standing on our land. We standing on we
Let's go back to the George Washington Contra, L.
Go ahead.
You got these different groups of people that's melanated put in the melting pot. One group is trying to stop the other group from saying this pot belongs to me. And the only way they can do it is by living among the people who own the pot, which is the land. Living among the people and assuming their identity and telling the people whose identity they're assuming they from somewhere else. Misdirection. Then they won't never say this pot belongs to me. They'll say we all in this pot together. Can't we all just get along?
Right.
No, we can't all just get along. Cause ain't nobody happy when Big Mama ain't happy because her babies ain't got their stuff.
Right.
She want her daughters to have what's rightfully theirs. We can't get along. We automatically hostile to each other. We might look alike, but we don't think alike and we don't feel alike.
That's deep.
You don't have a reverence for the woman in the womb, and we do. You got a reverence for testicles and phalluses. And that's not the same thing. We know that our life had to come from a woman because we was all female before mama changed our gender in the womb.
That's correct.
Even if we had the Y chromosome, she don't have to agree. She'd override the Y chromosome. Biochemistry 101. The balance of estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone determines the gender of the child. The mother is the one who reads the DNA code, and if you ain't the type that need to have a son, she gonna give you a daughter. And that's why so many people twist it now, because they don't understand genetics and they don't understand fetal development. They don't understand none of that stuff. They just going on what the church said. We made this man out of mud and drew a woman out of his rib, and poof, you got a couple.
Hey, Rod.
Yeah.
Ali just came to me and said, enforce the Constitution. What you got on that, Rod? Enforce the Constitution. He skipped over.
That's what Trump doing. You got to first enforce the Constitution in order to get the people back what's rightfully theirs.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take it from corporate to a republic.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it plays out in the political satire as the elephant stomping the donkey.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looked like. The elephant is our watchdog, with Ali.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so if the elephant is our watchdog, it's going to tear something up at the end. We at the end. Something getting tore up.
Mm-hmm.
We got the liquidator in chief liquidating the corporation. So it's being enforced, right? And then we're going to have a whole new constitutional convention because we need a new governing instrument for the people based on more equitable principles and clear determinations of the powers of government. Because the government went totally insane. At least the fraudulent government has. Some of the stuff that they doing to people now, it's totally uncalled for, irrational, and it doesn't make sense unless they are occupying foreign agency trying to control the people on the land by imposing the foreign culture on the people in the land.
That's it.
We got our own culture. We don't need nobody bringing no culture over here. We export culture. We got so much culture.
All right. That's it.
Music, fashion, swag, the whole nine. Everybody want to be like us, but don't nobody want to be us.
Right.
They can't take what we took. They can't endure what we endured and still come out shiny and new. It ain't personal, it's just business. But it's family business, so we take family business personal. That's all.
That's right.
And all the parts of the family is doing their part of the program. Everybody not supposed to do the same thing. And eventually you will see we all on the same page, but you need a catalyst first.
Right.
You need a trigger. So once you realize what the trigger is, who are that mofo? Let's set it off. Call a meeting all of the generals in the military and tell them, let's set it off. Call all your allies around the world. Tell them, move in on the deep state. Crash them now. What he said when he got popped in the ear? Fight, fight, fight. Right? So, whatever it is then come full circle. The voice has been heard and the people are awake.
Mm-hmm. Before I go to this next clips, I got one more question for you. Now, so they've been able to use color of law since we've been ignorant. For the most part, as a whole, we ain't really enforced the Constitution. So they've been able to do color of law, do this color of law. So could you go in on how they've been using color of law on us because we don't stand up for our birthrights and our rights on the land?
Right. So what that is called assumed jurisdiction.
Okay.
Colorable law, meaning that you can use color in the application of law.
Mm-hmm.
There's only two colors in the game: black and white. Everything else is a variation in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So they're telling you it's a chess game by colorable law,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's black versus white, civilly mortis versus free white persons. If you don't know the definitions, you can go to Black's Law Dictionary and look it up. We've already been over that in this class a few times.
Yeah.
But the white man ain't white. He's just colored by law.
Right.
Right? The black man ain't black. He's been colored by law. And law in black and white. The
Right.
checkerboard floor. It's the law in black and white. So the application of the law is done through coloring in positions.
Mm-hmm.
Judges wear black. Police wear blue.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Sheriffs wear brown and gray.
Mm-hmm.
Military wear black and green for the Army.
Mm-hmm.
Black and navy blue for the Navy. Black and marine blue for the Marines. Or sometimes blue and white. Air Force, primarily white with shades of black and blue. They're colored by law.
Mm-hmm.
The law is the uniform.
I just want to say it.
The law is the rules for the uniform.
Your phone
Because the uniform can only act according to law.
Right.
Right? Mailmen got a uniform. That's a government agency.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Those masquerading as government agencies, you know they're not, because there's nobody elected by the people. They're appointed. Any appointed position is belligerent to the people.
Mm-hmm.
So big cities no longer elect the chief of police like they did the sheriff, but they still elect the sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
If the people elect them, the people can compel them to do their will, but if the people don't elect them, then whoever appointed them has the jurisdictional control. So you got to look at the corporate structure. By studying the structure of corporations and then you do a layout, you will realize that we're in a militarized, occupied zone. Why do you think all of the police look like soldiers walking down the street?
That's right.
Riding around in their cars with shotguns and you can't have one.
Yeah.
In a case where you're supposed to have a right to bear arm, not a privilege.
Yeah.
Right? But you can't have one because you might fight back. But when you go and study what the founding fathers said, the reason for giving you the right to bear arms, they tell you it ain't to go hunting, it ain't to go ski shooting. It's that when the government becomes tyrannical with these means, the people are authorized to have a well-formed militia and overthrow the tyranny of government. That's what it's for. For the people to do a citizen's arrest on all of the police for fraud.
Right.
For masquerading as sheriffs.
Well,
they don't have elected jurisdiction. They're not supposed to be here under the republic. But under democracy, you can appoint them. If you see the difference, you can see the struggle.
Yeah, you're right.
The police not allowed to keep prisoners longer than 72 hours, but the sheriff can maintain them until they go through trial. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
If the police hold you longer than 72 hours without charging you, they either have to let you go or make up some shit.
Oh, it's going to be a federal habeas corpus.
Right, because their jurisdiction only stands 72 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have to surrender you to the sheriff. At the order of the court. And the court is the bar. And the bar is the Bar Association. And the Bar Association was chartered by King George out of England.
Mm-hmm.
Which means they barristers.
That's
Bar
right.
being short for barrister.
That's right.
The barristers accreditation registry.
That's right.
You register the barristers who got royal lineage rights by letters patent, but they can't pass it to their children unless they make their children members of the bar. The bar, the first rule of the bar is that all bar members must uphold the integrity of the bar above all others.
Yep.
So that means that they be holding to the bar more than they be holding to their client.
Mm-hmm.
The same with, and you the only one not a bar member. The judge a bar member, prosecutor a bar member, your attorney a bar member.
That's right.
You need a bar member to represent you in the barrister's jurisdiction because you not a passenger on their ship. They just drug you on there. Now they got to prove they had a reason valid to drag you on the ship or drag you to bar. Once they come up with this, what they call information, right, they bypass the indictment. Mm-hmm. Constitution say you got to be indicted.
That's right.
But the state court has been issuing information because they don't have the powers to indict unless it's a recorder's court. They've been trying to close the Detroit recorder's court down for years. And the one in Chicago used to be a recorder's court. I think it's administrative now.
Mm.
Right? But you can tell how they handle constitutional issues. In the recorder's court, they follow the Constitution as close as they can. But in administrative court, they don't follow the Constitution. They follow the statutes and the codes. It's a difference.
Hey, let me roll a couple of clips. I got a fire question for you because they're gonna go along with these clips. Because that other clip, all these people are supposed to derive their delegation from the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, right? Like, you know, for the people first, because it's a republic. They're supposed to derive their delegation of authority from the people. So that means that they got to be elected. If you ain't elected, you don't got no delegation of authority. The people can't, like, you know, how do these people?
That's what he was just talking about, the tyranny of a democracy. When you start appointing people, you can systematically take control of large groups of people by controlling the people in the certain places.
Right.
Law enforcement is a critical position in this war game. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you don't take the police back off the land and put the sheriff and the marshals back in charge, you can't take it back to the republic. Mm-hmm. Right? The sheriff and the marshal is appointed by the president after the election. Mm-hmm. And he's also made known who the U.S. Marshal is. The same with the Department of Defense. Right. I forgot who the U.S. Marshal fall under, but I think they fall under the DOD, part of Homeland Security, as well as the National Guard. But when the president needs information to determine, like, where do I institute martial law, where do I need to send the local sheriff, or what needs to be done in this area, you know what I'm saying, to benefit the people. A lot of time, his investigative arm was supposed to have been the Department of Justice, was like the prosecutor, investigator, and then they would send the marshal out to enforce the order of the president. That's why he's appointed, because it's like his bailiff and his the DOJ is like his attorneys. Mm-hmm. Right? So when they go out, they give information back to the president relating to enforcement of legal law and stuff of that manner and what goes on the land. The sheriff's supposed to have an annual convention. Right? And then the police is part of something called Fraternal Order of Police. It's a brotherhood like the Masonic Order.
Yeah, I remember teaching on that.
They chartered out of England. They got a sister organization in England. I forgot the name of it. But their handbook comes from England, where they tell them how to enforce law.
That's right. Mother Barbara got the book.
Yeah, all that comes from over there. That's because It's the same as when we occupied Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. military had boots on the ground policing until they can restore a new police force
Mm-hmm.
that worked instead for the president of Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the meantime, America got two occupations going on simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
They have the Iraqi occupation and the Afghanistan occupation, both going on simultaneously. That's why you see two occupations of Khazarians, one called Ukraine and one called the West Bank.
Mm.
Right? Both of those are the same people. The Khazarians' homeland is Ukraine, and they stole and occupied territory is the West Bank, the Gaza Strip. Right? The Palestinian territory that they now not call Israel. And you got to know, Israel was chartered in 1948 and enforced as the first act of the United Nations with three countries, France, Britain, and the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And once they established that in honoring the Balfour Declaration, once they established that, that's when they started sending all of the Khazarians to take over the West Bank. But it was about oil and oil trade,
Mm-hmm.
because it was about putting a dog in the fight that they didn't have a dog in the fight. Israel became an asset to the United States, but it turned around and bought the United States Corporation. And then the United States Corporation became an asset to the state of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's like the son buying the daddy out.
Mm-hmm.
You want him out the business. He gonna run it from where he at. So then Morocco wasn't established until 1956. So Israel is actually like 8 years older than Morocco.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're looking at all of these different events in history, the story is still telling us the same thing about colonization and military advancement to overrun the land.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as we don't know who we are, they stood a chance of winning, but too many of us know who we are, they can't win now.
Yeah, it's too late now. It's
Yeah. So when they talk about democracy being tyrannical, it's mostly because it's based on majority rule.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we weren't originally allowed to vote because we didn't have a stake in the corporation.
That's right.
We weren't stakeholders. We weren't vote holding members of the corporation. This is where your electoral college comes in. You remember earlier my man was saying that the people was elected through the electoral college, the president?
Yeah.
Right. The electoral college is a buffer to control the outcome of an election that's been put to the public's vote. The public vote because they're not members of the corporation. They're not what they call it, vote holding members of the corporation.
Mm-hmm.
They employees of the corporation, and the electoral college is serving as the union's negotiating board to elect the president. They never tell us who the electors is on the electoral college, but you can look it up because it has to be put in the public domain.
Mm-hmm.
And you find nobody on there is Chief Littlehorn, none of that.
Yep.
They are some billionaires that we ain't never heard of before.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be a couple of judges on there, a couple of people like that. But the electoral college was the original tool used to usurp the presidency, and I think it was Calvin Coolidge. Right? When he won the popular vote and the electors decided to choose the other opponent. And it happened more than once. If the vote is that close, you're supposed to have a runoff. When they had a runoff, they had a political appointment by a judiciary. And that's how you know that the whole system is under the central control of a single group of people. Because they do stuff that constitutionally they're not supposed to do. When the people elect the president and there's a conflict, then they supposed to have a runoff. You see it happen on local government with mayors a lot, but you didn't see it with the president when they had the same situation.
With all the Egyptian artifacts and things.
Well, the first thing you got to realize is the Nile is what they call an architectural marvel of ancient times. The Nile didn't used to drain into the Mediterranean. The Nile used to drain into the middle of the Sahara Desert. And the rerouting of the Nile was to fill in a crater from a war. And so they rerouted the Nile to aid in the flooding of the Mediterranean. And right between the Pillars of Hercules used to be a land bridge. They bust the land bridge out, and that's how the Mediterranean got to be salt water, because they filled it from the Nile, fresh water, in one area. In the other area, they filled it with the Atlantic Ocean by tearing that land bridge out. The same bridge the Etruscans used when they walked across to go into Europe. Right? So now that you know that the Nile that's not its original route. The only place where the route is the original is the Mississippi. All of those, all that stuff over there is replicas of stuff over here. And because so much time has lapsed since that stuff was built, we think that the ancient building of it was contemporary when it wasn't. If you get this book, it's called Popol Vuh. It tell you in there that the ancestors created us from maize.
Corn.
I'm gonna let that rest on that one.
I did a tape on it. I let roll this next one because this some good stuff we got here, man. Doc already broke that down about one of the Four Winds, which was one of the ships that was locked in Nibiru force field from the Ninja fleet from Meldeck, crashed down. I think it was the West Wind or one of them that crashed down into that and made that going when it was Tiamat. But that ain't the point. But the point I'm trying to say is they got pictures. So it just ties in what the other people just said about the Valley of the Kings and the other guys saying they found the others, just tie all in that, hey, these people were already here. Or the people they call Egyptians.
Yeah. So the whole thing is this. In order for the outer Africa theory not to be crushed upside his head, they have to try to justify everything from a perspective of coming out of Africa. America is the original cradle of Earth civilization. All innovations of the world always came from here. Right? When we call it in the Atlantean civilization, Atlantis was just one part of the global civilization of the era.
That makes sense.
All this stuff, you had the first dynasty. The first dynasty, Scribe said that the Egyptian plateau was already there when they got there. Right? Because they came post Pyramid Wars.
Right.
So you won't never be able to see what was going on back then if somebody that could tap into the record to tell us. All of it, everybody trying to make the Bible fit America. The Bible is after the fact, an afterthought. Everything had to be geared to the control measure. Now we so addicted to biblical information and it's so saturated throughout all of our studies that not only are we from a Europeanized, Afrocentric origin of everything, but we also have a religious, biblical reference. And none of that stuff has ever been proven true.
That's right.
Right? But you can still see the geometry in there. You can still see the astrology and the astronomy in there. But you don't take 500-year-old information and apply it to something that's 5,000 years old. It don't apply.
Go ahead.
It had to be some adjustments made to first find what is the parallels and what is the differences. So you do a comparative analysis. What they had back then that we don't have now, what do we have now that they didn't have back then? When you start trying to understand what's taking place in those civilizations, you start to realize that, wait a minute, all of this stuff is told to us with a control measure as the foundation of why they even telling it to us.
That's right.
As soon as we start looking at the world outside of the lens of the Bible, the whole world look different. Don't look the same. And then the longer you're looking at it out of a non-Christian, Hebrew, or Islamic lens, and you look and you like somebody lying.
Right.
You just get a foreboding feeling that somebody is not telling the truth. And all of these finds, these discoveries, they're not new discoveries, but the information is just now reaching what we call mainstream recognition.
Right.
Right? Because now people pulling out the old textbooks, the books from 1800s and 1700s, gathering information. That's some hard stuff to read, but the information is valuable if you want to understand what's taking place today. Right? Because before they decided to go with the caste system, they was going with a military conquest. They was losing, so they had to switch the game up.
Hey, now let me roll this one right here because you said something about the map switch. I think this one attests to the maps being switched around. Bible story, the Bible, even if you read it correctly, even alludes to the fact that, hey, this is the old land. This is the ancient land. This is where Adam and Eve, so the so-called first person and first man. And then we already. What about the Albert Perry? Why we already found that was over here. So could you go in like a little bit on that the Garden of Eden, the Y chromosome, the Adam and Eve scenario thing?
Well, we know people was made over here because the signature carbon of corn is in all of the people.
Go ahead.
And like I told you earlier, the Popol Vuh said we was made from maize. Maize is corn.
Go ahead.
So look, the reason why I try to stay away from the biblical narrative is because I know what the book is for and what it was intended to do. Right? And I know about things that was translated and added after the fact that they say that it didn't happen.
Right.
Right. So I don't really, biblical information to me is like comics. Using the comic book